to stand here. I've always wanted to know what it feels to be a politician, so that's my try to. Hi, everyone. I just want you to be ready because I'm going to ask you a question on Slido in just a little bit. So thank you so much for the introduction and thank you for the invitation. Time for action is now. That was the COP25 slogan, which clearly reflects the sense of urgency which is now widely shared. We know global warming will have significant economic and social consequences. There is no time for procrastination. We need to accelerate change, we need systemic change, and we need to begin now. And to get inspired, we need the arts and culture. We need stories to help us imagine what the future would look like. We need stories of change. Stories of Change, this is an international cooperation project that we are co-developing with the Festival Academy. While the question of the environmental impact of cultural events and the role culture must embrace is now being raised by a growing number of cultural organizations, a systemic approach still seems out of reach. The complexity of certain fields, the lack of research and data available, and even the misconceptions to which they are subject represent an even greater delay to them being taken into consideration. Like, for instance, if you go on Slido, I would like to ask you a question. When we talk about festivals and events, do you actually know what represents the biggest impact in terms of carbon emissions? So I see travel comes along quite a lot, food, energy, merch. Yeah, we've talked about quite a lot of those impacts. Audience travel, well, some people know in the room. This is exactly it, actually. Because while we tend to put a big focus on artist mobility, and especially in the media coverage, we actually know now that audience travel often represents, on average, more than 80% of the total carbon emissions of an event. And this is where we have to work together, to have artists come closer to their audiences and not the other way around. For the cultural sector, this change of paradigm implies giving up numerous competitive practices that are commonplace today, like exclusivity clauses or concentration logics in favor of an independent network operation. And this is where I believe European networks have such an essential role to play, allowing cultural actors to exchange and to share practices, and sometimes also with professionals from other sectors. Sports were mentioned, education was mentioned as well. On a European and international level, we need to work collectively to ensure that we take into account all regional contexts and requirements, and make sure decisions that are being made on greening the mobility of artists and cultural professionals do respect those different contexts. I would like to mention here the work of On the Move network, that probably most of you know, which supports artists and professionals to operate internationally while working to reimagine mobility as fairer, greener, and more inclusive. And keeping the heart of international artistic and cultural mobility and doing it in a sustainable and fair way is definitely a challenge. It is also true that there are many things that are beyond our control as cultural actors, so this can often feel quite overwhelming. The cultural sector is also facing many risks connected to climate change, such as increase in transport costs, exposure to criticism, for example, for venues working mostly with international artists, or even eco-conditionality of culture funding. In terms of rethinking mobility, two systemic approaches are more and more being explored. One is what we call slow travel, and the other one is deep mobility. Slowing down, This doesn't necessarily mean touring by bike, even if it, of course, exists, and I think you will hear quite a lot about that later on. But it implies traveling in a slower way, less kilometers, less jumping from one place to another, avoiding one shot. And deep mobility, this means spending more time on a territory through residencies, promotion, meeting other artists, masterclass, workshops, and getting to meet the local community. This also allows to develop some solidarity schemes. For example, when you invite artists that have no other choices than to fly, you can have them stay longer and meet your community. For change to happen, education is crucial. We need access to resources, but we also need to be supported in how to implement them. And when we think about all the things it's going to take to address the climate crisis in the cultural sector and beyond, it's going to take a fundamental reorientation to care. We will need collaboration, creativity, connections, and this is the work that the Festival Academy is conducting, for example, when they offer capacity and skill building around the topic and bring festivals globally together to advocate for climate change through the International Festivals Declare Emergency Pledge, which is one of the babies also of Culture Declare Emergency and Music Declares Emergency. Each festival, through its form, its programming, its environment, and its audiences, gives us a vision of the world, not as it is, but as its actors would like it to be. It offers an ecosystem within which everyone can experiment things, like eating vegan for the first time, coming by carpooling, learning to sort waste. But the pandemic has shown us how fragile our model was. It has been a brutal stop that revealed the dysfunctions of our system. But even before COVID, more and more constellations of festivals, such as Lost Paradise or A Day on the Green in Australia, had raised the questions about the future of summer festivals in the face of the threat of increasingly extreme weather. So it's not longer only a question of reducing emissions, but really adapting to a new situation, a new reality. Festivals and events are laboratories for experimentation and risk-taking. They offer us the vision of a more sustainable world and suggest solutions that can be taken up in our daily lives. Just a couple of examples, and you will hear more later on also, but Wonderfield Festival in the Netherlands have a great waste management system. Hay Festival in the UK and Latin America has also developed a toolkit on how they work around environmental sustainability. Welcome to the Village, also in the Netherlands, is doing a great work around climate. And with EcoFest label, festivals on the African continent have set up an environmental label for their activities. So I could go on and on, actually. As we said, there are numerous examples and inspiration. At the Green Room, we emphasize on the fact that music has the power to cross borders and bring people together. It embodies the notion that we are all in the same boat and that this is a multifaceted global problem. Beyond a need for the implementation of a catalogue of best practices, a different story must be told in the face of environmental challenges. As suggested by the philosopher Malcolm Ferdinand, author of Decolonial Ecology, Thinking of Ecology from the Caribbean World, we must make the planet the focus of ecology. Talking about a climate emergency is all very well, but it is important to understand that this is not enough as a response. Rather than taking a solely environmentalist approach, the goal is also about politics, society, and mindsets. This is where we, who are involved in international cooperation and cultural projects can really add our voices. And together with Stories of Change, our call for action is to encourage people to take action in whatever field of power they have related to the issue, both individually and collectively. And we are all here mostly as cultural professionals, but we are also part of event audiences, actually, if you remember, which has the biggest impact. So just next time you go to a concert, to an exhibition, or a theater play, just think about that, and maybe if you have the possibility, just try not to take your car and try other ways to get there. Because I strongly believe also that as cultural professionals, and because culture has such a prescriptive role, we must be exemplary in our fight against climate change. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we have some questions for you, and people have asked. Do you want to stay there, or maybe come over here?
Yeah, I can move. I've experienced my political.
How was it though? Feeling like a proper politician?
Not really.
All right. So are artists interested in staying longer? You told something during your presentation. Are artists interested in staying longer at places where they tour?
Very much so.
Oh yeah.
When they have the possibility. For them, because a lot of artists that I work with are used to traveling during the day, arriving, rehearsal, sound check, playing the concert and leaving the day after. So sometimes they don't even have time to discover the city.
Yeah.
So for them, when they have the opportunity to stay 2-3 days, even to do a radio promotion, to meet other musicians, it's always quite a benefit. But it's, of course, when you can.
Yeah,
when you have children, for example, then maybe if you are not able to travel with them, or if it implies like more childcare costs, then it's more tricky. But in general, it's something that is usually received very positively.
Yeah, fair enough. How do you get your colleagues to come along with the new green thinking? If the current mode of working suits you well, change can bring trouble and even stress for some people. So how to get your colleagues to come with the same ideas?
That's a very good question. I think we didn't speak so much about it, but there's really a big link with anxiety, mental health around those issues, and sometimes it can be really overwhelming for people in teams. So we really try to, it has been said before, but like to start from what exists and really put people like to, I don't know the right word in English, like valorize, like put them...
valorize.
Yeah, for them to feel confident in taking this. And also for artists, it's also about to have them feel less guilty about this, because as we said, it's mostly the audience that has impact, and we need artists to continue to travel, to continue to meet, to inspire us. So it's really trying also to explain what are the real impacts and really have transparency about what is done and what can be done, actually, because we cannot change everything from one day to another. So,
thank you once again. Thank you very much.
Thanks.